Welcome. My name is Amanda Flocchini. I am the International Business Development Director here at Nevada Governor's Office of Economic Development. Really excited to have everyone join us today. This is an exciting collaboration that kind of was born out of PDAC this year. Our GoEd team was up in Canada for that and got to connect with the Battery Metals Association of Canada. And since then, we've had some really great conversations between our office, BMAC, as well as the Nevada Battery Coalition. All that to say, those are your three hosts today, GoEd, Nevada Battery Coalition, and the Battery Metals Association of Canada. So I'm really excited to have everybody join us. A couple things, just a quick overview of today's agenda. We're going to be hearing from folks from Nevada that will be talking about Nevada's evolving lithium loop, from existing industry to economic development opportunities and research and development initiatives. We have three presenters on that topic, and then from the Canada side, we're going to hear a little bit about Canada's evolving battery industry and opportunities for regional hubs, including economic development opportunities in Western Canada, and just a little bit more about the industry itself in Canada. So I am going to kind of begin with our first presenter here. I'm going to hand it over to Karsten Heiss, who is one of the senior leaders here at Nevada GoEd, and he will kick off our presentation to talk about Nevada's lithium loop. So I'm going to hand it over. Actually, and I apologize, Sean, actually, I'm going to pass it over to you first, and then I'll hand it over to Karsten. Sean's going to say just a couple words.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. And I'm just trying to get my screen straight here, but I just wanted to recognize that we're all joining from different lands today, a wide range of regions. So we want to recognize the traditional territories and the indigenous peoples from those territories that we're living and working on, that we're coming from today. So thank you, Amanda, and turn it back over to Karsten now.
Thank you so much, and good morning or good afternoon, depending on what time zone you are in. My name is Karsten Heiss, as Amanda indicated. I'm with GoEd. I'm actually a founding member of GoEd, and I've been around for a while. And here at GoEd, we tend to form public-private partnerships, and therefore I think it's only fitting that today I will be joined by Dr. Fred Steinman, who is the director of the University Center for Economic Development at University of Nevada in Reno, and by Caleb Cage, who is leading the Nevada Battery Coalition. So I will go through a couple of slides, leave it at a higher level, and then Fred and Caleb can dive deeper down into certain aspects of what I'm going to talk about. So in the first slide, you really see our current or indication and reference to our current economic development plan, or the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, SETS for short. And now we at GoEd, we were founded in 2011, so a little bit of history here. At that time, we were elevated to cabinet level and to the governor's office. So that was also the first time we put together a strategic and economic development plan for the state. And that was based on a study performed at the time by SRI, Stanford Research Institute, and Brookings Institution. And the title of that was Unify, Regionalize, and Diversify. And that really formed the first state plan. Ever since, we have issued subsequent state plans, and the current one is shown here. Now, we are still diversifying our economy, and even when you look at, and we are going to talk about this lithium loop and traditional mining, that's always been a cornerstone of our economy. So you can say, why are diversifying there? Well, new technologies and new market opportunities are actually adding even traditional sectors such as mining to the diversification strategy of our state. Now, some highlights of the current 5-year sets. We can really regard our state as to be ground zero for the energy transition to lower zero carbon worlds. So that's you will see what we mean by ground zero when we talk more about lithium loop and the opportunities there. This state is a Western mountain state. We have a incredibly strong entrepreneurial culture and fairly independent mindset. And really being pioneers is in our state's DNA. We have, we can say, in growing net migration, which forms substantial potential for growing a talent pool. So any companies coming to our state will find a workforce that is growing. So our labor force growth actually is higher than our population growth, and that's mainly the result of net migration into our state. We are strategically well located, really positioned within 3 megapolitan clusters. So you can sort of differentiate here the Northern Nevada, Sierra Pacific cluster, and that is Northern Nevada and Northern California. And then eastern part of the state forms a cluster with Utah and part of Colorado. And then we have Southern Nevada, and that's really clustering with the Southwest Triangle, Southern California and Arizona. So any companies coming here, locating here, are based not just in Nevada, but really based in a megapolitan cluster, which presents another opportunity for them. The final point of I would like to highlight is our state is really predominantly position itself as a test bed for new technologies, and what that means we can dive deeper in when we talk about tech hubs and NSF engines. So next slide, please. So 3 highlights really of the 5-year sets. We regard our future to be electric, innovative, connected, and that is really based on, or the base of that future is really formed by 5 target sectors. So we are looking at information, digital technologies, such as transportation and logistics. We're looking at natural resources and technologies. We're looking at hospitality, sports, and creative industries, and we are looking at advanced manufacturing. These are our focus industries. They will form the base for the future that we are building. Next slide, please. Now, I'm going to talk now a little bit about the lithium loop and details there. Now, this can really best described be, in 3 compelling aspects. So we really look at opportunity, we're looking at momentum, and we are looking at validation by federal programs. So what do I mean by opportunity? This is really, we see, as you well know, a continued global energy transition, and that our opportunity here is through that incredibly increasing demand for lithium-based energy storage. So not just for electric vehicles, but in generally, grid backup and so forth, energy storage. And as the slide sort of indicates, we expect that market to grow to a 5-fold in the next decade. Now, that's the opportunity, but we also have, this is our case, we have an incredibly strong momentum, and I'm sure that Caleb, when he is talking about the Nevada Battery Coalition, is going to go deeper there. But just to give you, some aspects there. So the private sector really is growing in all stages of the lithium supply chain. So we have, for example, Lithium Americas. They just, they are the recipients of a $2.25 billion loan for advanced technology vehicles manufacturing from the U.S. Department of Energy. They received a $650 million investment from General Motors. On the recycling side, Redwood Materials is receiving a $2 billion loan from the Department of Energy. Lilac Solutions received a $50 million DOE grant and raised a $145 million Series C capital. Raised round. American Batteries Technologies is a recipient of a $60 million 48C. These are tax credits under the Qualifying Advanced Energy Project Credit Act, Section 48E. And they received a $70 million grant from DOE as well. So you see that there's a lot of momentum in the private sector in this lithium group. Next slide, please. And I was talking about, as I said, opportunity, momentum, and then opportunity and momentum is really validated by federal programs that we are involved in, and that's shown here on this slide. Fred is going to talk about in more detail about the Tech Hub. That's the Economic Development Administration out of the U.S. Department of Commerce. We are a recipient of a designation award. We just submitted a phase 2 and awaiting news there from the EDA. This is a opportunity really to grow on the technology readiness level. We say 6 and above. So it's really the commercialization of technologies at a later stage. And I'm mentioning that, but it's going into, as I said, it's going into detail, but I'm mentioning on the zoning in on the technology end here, because the National Science Foundation Engines Award that we also received is within the lithium loop technology area as well. But here we are looking at at much earlier stages of technology, but the two are extremely complementary. And here the University of Nevada, Reno received the $1 million development award. We just submitted our letter of intent for the next phase last week. The grant pre-application is due in August 6th, and if we are invited, which we are positive we will be, then we have to submit the full application in by February 11th. And here we are really looking at youth-inspired research that will be leading to a sustainability and inclusive acceleration of commercially viable electrification technologies. So that's what the NSF engines, as far as UNR and the development award is concerned. The state is also a recipient of the first inaugural 10 engines that NSF awarded early this year. We are not leading this, but we are part of the consortium that is headed by the Arizona State University. It's a three-state regional effort with Utah and Nevada supporting here ASU, our University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and the Desert Research Institute are both part of the consortium. It's a 10-year project. Currently 50 million is being awarded by NSF. The next phase will be more than that. So we're expecting about 50 million to come into the state over the period of 10 years, not counting any other governmental or any private sector investment. It will be much a multifold of that. Next slide, please. Okay, let me talk a little bit about the supply chain, what we really mean by that. The slides that we are showing here, we presented at the most recent lithium summit at the University of Nevada, Reno, in conjunction with the NSF engines. And what we did was we basically grouped according to NEX codes the components of the supply chain. It's emerging, it's new, it's very hard to classify. What we have done was our office has actually divided them into 7. For this here to be grouped them, actually we have 4 segments, as you see here: mining and processing, cell component, battery manufacturing, EV and parts production, and recycling and reuse. So that's what we mean when we talk about lithium supply chain components for this conversation. Next slide, please. Now, I mentioned momentum, opportunity, momentum, and fellow program validation. So back to momentum. So we are showing here over time really the employment growth in those 4 components of the supply chain, and you see that in basically all 4, except mining, where it's more or less stable, but there's no drop either. You really have incredibly growth in employment. Currently, we are around slightly north of 20,000. This is expected to more than double in the next 5 years to 50 and maybe even beyond. So that's the momentum we are at. We use this slide to show you how we break this down, where the employment growth really is currently and at what rate. Next slide, please. Now, when I talked about the four parts and how we group them with Next codes, we also this is an ongoing project as more and more companies are being either stood up within Nevada, new companies are formed, or companies are being attracted to the state. So you're seeing here the companies that are currently operating in the state with a respective segment that we categorize. This is just for information purposes. Next slide, please. And that's really going back to the opportunity. So I'm sort of close this and hand it over to Caleb and Fred by presenting where the opportunity lies in input substitution. So what we did here was we looked at the four segments, and we basically have the numbers here. And you see that in red, where currently the demand in those segments are met by imports. So this is coming into Nevada. But the opportunity here is basically to have that what is shown in red to turn into Nevada-based. So this ranges from 43 in recycling, so 43% in recycling to 96% EV in parts production. So this is the opportunity. So for you in the audience, companies that consider Nevada, that would be we would welcome you, because our strategy is input substitution, and these are the sort of the components where we are backed by numbers and we are seeing the greatest opportunity. So with that, I would hand it over to Caleb, I believe.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Caleb Cage. I'm the Executive Director of the Nevada Battery Coalition. I'm pleased to follow Karsten, who has been a part of every major innovation and reform in economic development in Nevada over the recent decades, and has truly, his fingerprints are all over Nevada's transformation. And I count him as a good friend as well, and really value and appreciate everything he's done to help the battery storage industry and the lithium battery loop in Nevada grow. I'm also pleased to be joined here by my friend Fred Steinman, who much like Karsten, will have much more technical detail and better information than I'll be able to provide here today. But I'm excited to be here and grateful to our friends at the Governor's Office of Economic Development and our friends at the Battery Metals Association of Canada as well for this opportunity to speak on the lithium supply chain in the state of Nevada, where we came from and how we are growing. Nevada is emerging as a leading battery center in North America. Every stage of the energy supply chain, as you can see from this slide here that the Governor's Office of Economic Development has provided, from exploration and extraction to recycling, is present and continuing to develop in our state. The current investment in the industry has produced profoundly positive environmental, economic, and national security advantages in the United States, as well as for Nevada, and all of which are strengthened by uniting the industry through the Nevada Battery Coalition, again, specifically here to the state of Nevada. So where did we come from and how long have we been around? The Nevada Battery Coalition actually started at a small breakfast diner in Carson City, Nevada, where I met with Karsten's colleague, Deputy Director of the Governor's Office of Economic Development, a gentleman named Bob Potts, who said, we really have this industry growing here in the state of Nevada rapidly, with a lot of entrepreneurship and investment that's going into it, and we need to find a way to bring it together and coordinate it. I was leaving state government at the time and set out to form something like this. Little did I know, efforts were already well underway by November of 2022, and I was able to simply join many of those conversations between lithium miners, lithium manufacturers, battery manufacturers, and chemical processors, and others in order to help us get established in 2023. So we formed officially in March of 2023. We elected our board in December of 2024. December of 2023. And we have been focused on public awareness, industry promotion, workforce, and economic development ever since. As of today, we have 22 members in our trade association. Each phase of the supply chain that you see represented on this slide is represented. It's upstream, midstream, and downstream within the supply chain. We have different levels of membership that represent brand new startups that are still in the development phase, mid-sized companies that are fully operational and growing, as well as major producers here in the state. And you heard Karsten mention some of the companies that have really stand out in the battery landscape in the state of Nevada: Tesla and Panasonic and Redwood. We have American Battery Technology Company and Aqua Metals and Lithium Americas and others who have been a part of our organization since the very beginning. We really aim to position ourselves to support national security. The administration, the federal administration's national security vision, to ensure that we have energy independence, and so we can make independent choices around in terms of global affairs, but also to support decarbonization efforts, and in Nevada, focusing on economic diversification and economic opportunity for Nevadans. The opportunity for Nevada, and you heard Karsten talk about this in some detail, is significant. We have the only operational lithium mine in the United States right now. Probably the next two lithium mining operations to come online in the United States will also be within the state of Nevada. We're the only state in the United States that has all 7 stages of the lithium supply chain represented within it. You heard some of the federal loans from the Department of Energy, Karsten talked about a minute ago. Lithium Americas was one of the many companies that's received federal loans here. They recently received the largest federal loan for a single natural resources project in the United States history. Fred's going to talk about the EDA Tech Hub and probably the NSF grant, Engines grant, that you heard about previously, as well as the fact that Nevada is home to a very large percentage of the national clean energy workforce. I say very large percentage because depending on how you slice your definitions within there, that number changes, but it can get up to over 50% pretty quickly with Nevada's clean tech workforce. There are also projections that there will be a 5-fold increase in the global lithium-ion battery market through 2030, which positions Nevada as well. And another strength of ours is leaders like Karsten and Thomas Burns over at the Governor's Office of Economic Development, as well as the governor, have made this industry a key component of our future growth and a strategic opportunity for the United States. So we are aligned with national interests, and we are interested in supporting efforts to onshore and friendshore this industry to countries that we are aligned with, countries that we work well with, and Canada is obviously one of those. We are benefiting from a generational investment, bipartisan support, and incredible private sector innovation here. We're looking forward to appreciating and realizing the value in the areas of national security, climate change, and economic stability and growth from a national perspective, and also diversifying our economy, better jobs for Nevada families, better partnerships with nations and companies around the world. And with that, I will stop and I will turn it over to my good friend, Dr. Fred Steinman.
Well, thank you, Caleb. Thank you, Karsten. And certainly thanks to BMAC, GOED, and the Nevada Battery Coalition for having me join you today. As Caleb indicated, my name is Fred Steinman. I am currently the director of the University Center for Economic Development, or UCED, here in the College of Business at the University of Nevada, Reno. And I also serve as the principal investigator for UCED's and the University of Nevada, Reno's Phase 1 and Phase 2 Economic Development Administration Regional Technology and Innovation Hub application. As both Karsten and Caleb have already pointed out, the Regional Technology and Innovation Hub project being led by UCED and the university is really part of a multifaceted and multi-pronged initiative, really started in the state of Nevada 10 plus years ago when our current university president, Brian Sandoval, was then governor of the state of Nevada. Governor Sandoval took the reins of the state government during the height of the Great Recession. There were articles in the local papers, especially here in Northern Nevada, that essentially equated Northern Nevada and Reno to becoming the next Detroit of the West, in not so a positive tone. It was then that the establishment of the Governor's Office of Economic Development and the direction provided by then Governor Sandoval and the legislature really looked to diversify the state's economy primarily outside the Las Vegas metro and Clark County area, away from sole dependence on tourism and hospitality as a major driver of local and regional economic development. Shortly after that, the Governor's Office of Economic Development signed the first major tax abatement initiative with Tesla and Panasonic North America to develop the new gigawatt factory located about 45 minutes outside the Reno-Sparks metro area. And the Regional Technology and Innovation Hub initiative here at the university, dovetailing with the National Science Foundation Engines Type 1 and now into the Type 2 efforts, as well as many efforts by the U.S. Department of Energy, the Department of Defense, and other federal and even state organizations, is really a continuation of that effort and an effort to build upon over $10 billion of public and private investment into this industry sector in Nevada that have been made over the last decade or so. For those of you not familiar with the Economic Development Administration's Regional Technology and Innovation Hub program, just a little bit of background. The Tech Hub program, which is administered by the Economic Development Administration, part of the U.S. Department of Commerce, was authorized by Congress as part of the CHIPS and Science Act of 2022. And of course, the broad goal of the CHIPS and Science Act is really to restore U.S. domestic leadership worldwide in various key technology focus areas and key industry and occupation sectors that are essentially critical to U.S. and ally national defense and security, as well as part of the administration's current focus on climate change mitigation efforts, and certainly part of a broader economic development and diversification strategy for the U.S. national economy moving forward. Now, the Nevada Lithium Batteries and Other EV Materials Loop Regional Technology and Innovation Hub, or Nevada Tech Hub, was designated on October 23rd of 2023. The University of Nevada, Reno, and our Tech Hub was one of 31 designated tech hubs out of 389 Phase 1 applicants during the summer and early fall of 2023. As both Karsten and Kayla have pointed out, we did successfully submit our Phase 2 application for a max ask of $75 million over 5 years from EDA, beginning October 1 of this year, back on February 29th. And we're in a little bit of an odd holding pattern between submitting our Phase 2 application and anxiously awaiting awaiting formal announcements from the President of the United States, the Secretary of the Department of Commerce, and the National EDA Tech Hub team. But I will say you definitely want to keep an eye on the news over the next 7 days, as there's likely to be an announcement from the White House very, very soon regarding those Phase 2 Tech Hub applications. In terms of the specifics of the Nevada Tech Hub, the Nevada Tech Hub from a geographic standpoint covers 16 of Nevada's 17 counties. We'll have to update Karsten's slide in this handout because our consortium just in the last month or so has grown to over 75 individual consortium members. And it's a very broad and diverse consortium, really building upon the work of the Nevada Battery Coalition and GOED and other partners throughout the state, including public sector, private sector, nonprofit and community-based agencies, firms, and organizations, really spanning the gambit of that value network and supply chain that Karsten pointed out, from extraction to processing to advanced manufacturing into recycling and to all points within that. Again, the Nevada Tech Hub hopes to be able to spend $75 million in federal funds over the next 5 years, really to focus on closing identified gaps that have emerged within the value network and the supply chain of this emerging industry sector within the state over the next 5 years. Again, as Karsten really pointed out, Nevada's lithium battery, critical element, and other EV materials industry sector is a rapidly growing industry sector. And with any rapid growth of any industry sector, gaps in the value network and the supply chain are just bound to happen. So we're really focused on using the EDA funds as well as funds that we've secured from the state of Nevada, the university, and several of our trade associations and labor unions in the state of Nevada for match to target our business creation, attraction, retention, and expansion efforts to close those gaps in related and semi-related subsectors. So for example, firms like Dragonfly Energy, a battery manufacturer, or Ioneer, an extractor or processor, they may be buying a particular chemical or a particular manufactured screw or plastic component part from suppliers outside the United States, predominantly from China. We want to be able to rapidly accelerate business creation and business attraction so that that plastics manufacturer, that screw manufacturer, that chemical producer is here within the state of Nevada, really closing the entire loop of the industry sector. Because efforts like the NSF Engines project, the investments that the U.S. Department of Energy are making are really focused on the primary industry sector partners, additional extractors, additional processors, additional battery manufacturers, and additional recyclers. The Tech Hub is really designed to create the supporting infrastructure needed to close those gaps. In fact, our goals for the Tech Hub over the next 5 years are very ambitious. We look to create 3,000 new businesses, expand 2,000 existing businesses, and create 50,000 new jobs in our targeted closure of those gaps within the supply chain over the next 5 years. And certainly, while climate change mitigation and economic development and diversification are very important components of the Tech Hub program and the CHIPS and Science Act overall, fundamentally, this comes down to a national security imperative. You know, I'm probably not speaking out of turn, but the United States, Canada, and our Western allies, we've fallen significantly behind in several key technology focus areas. And critical elements and advanced energy technologies are certainly two of the focus areas that the Tech Hub program at the national level are designed to close. And given the near complete monopoly that China and other nations, that the United States, Canada, and our allied partners do not have necessarily the best of foreign relations with at this time, really creates that imperative for us to develop domestic capacity and capability, pushing against China's near 100% control and provision of refined and processed lithium, or refined and processed copper, or lithium batteries themselves, is critical to ensure, again, our domestic national security, as well as meeting climate mitigation and climate change goals, as well as economic development and diversification goals. The Tech Hub Consortium, again, made up of those 75 plus consortium members, really has at its core 4 individual organizations. Certainly, the Center for Economic Development in the university serves as the lead entity and applying entity for the Tech Hub. It'll be our responsibility to bring order to the chaos of 75 plus consortium members working together to target and close those individual gaps. But in addition to the university, the Nevada Battery Association, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, and the Nevada Mining Association serve as the 4 core consortium members. And I really wanted to touch upon the role of the Nevada Mining Association, because while lithium is certainly critical and represents major opportunities for the states, the United States, and our allied partners in Canada and Western Europe, we're really talking more than just lithium. We need to make sure that we have domestic secured sources of gold, copper, silver, and other critical elements that go into battery manufacturing and other EV material production capabilities as well. And this is where I think Nevada and even a province like Ontario and Quebec really do differentiate themselves from other states and provinces and other allied partners, in that Nevada alone supplies and currently mines and extracts 30 individual critical elements used in various battery and related manufacturing processes. And when you add the extraction and processing capabilities of Ontario and Quebec to Nevada, you really do see pretty much 100% of the needed inputs into production from a critical element standpoint being provided. That was a topic that came up last week when I attended the 2024 Conference de Montreal in Montreal, hosted by the IEFA, and really this consolidated and shared understanding of the need for Nevada, Ontario, Quebec, Canada, the United States, and our Western allies to work together to essentially counter the major influence that China and other nations have within this particular industry sector. To wrap up, and again, kind of light in terms of the Tech Hub details of what we're specifically going to be doing, because we're still waiting on an announcement from EDA, and their announcement will really impact the specifics of what the Tech Hub will be doing over the next 5 years. Really also wanted to highlight the capacity and capability of the Center for Economic Development and the university and the Nevada system of higher education more broadly. We have a long-standing, multi-decade relationship with EDA and various federal agencies. Nevada, the University of Nevada, we are celebrating our 150th anniversary this year. And as Nevada's only land-grant institution with 13 individual colleges, we really do have the institutional capacity to drive both the research and development element that occurs in the lab that will lead to new innovation and new technologies, but also the capability, especially when married with the rest of the Nevada system of higher education, to accelerate various workforce development efforts, either on the career technical education front, really working with our partners like Western Nevada College, Great Basin College, and Truckee Meadows Community College, or really furthering advanced commercialization and entrepreneurship, ensuring that new technologies that are discovered in the lab make their way into the market in a successful manner, as opposed to just essentially dying in more of a conceptual phase of development. Again, my thanks to GOED, the Nevada Battery Coalition, and BMAC for allowing me this opportunity to share with you some of what we're doing here at the university in regards to the Regional Technology and Innovation Hub program administered by EDA, some of the specifics of the Nevada Tech Hub, and certainly look forward to working with each of you moving forward to continue to develop this emerging industry sector. And I think with that, I'm supposed to hand it back to either Amanda Amanda or Sean, I will hand it off to one of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Fred, and thank you, Caleb and Karsten, for all of the amazing information that you just shared. So thank you so much. We're going to switch gears here, and we're going to head over to our Canadian presenter lineup. I believe we're going to start with Jennifer Stelzer, Director of Policy Strategy and Analytics with Prairies Economic Development Canada. And so I will hand it over to Jennifer.
Thank you, Amanda, and thanks everyone. As mentioned, my name is Jennifer Stelzer, and I'm the Director of Policy Strategy and Analytics for Prairies Economic Development Canada, based in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, filling in today for our Saskatchewan Assistant Deputy Minister, Andrew Fraser, who had a conflict and unfortunately wasn't able to be here. Andrew represents our department in terms of our, as a champion on the critical minerals pieces that we try to help to support and bolster here with Prairies Economic Development Canada. And on behalf of Andrew and myself and my colleagues who are joining us here as well today, just like to thank Sean and BMAC and the Nevada Governor's Office of Economic Development for inviting us to speak to the group. Really, it is very impressive to see the branding, to see the approach that's come together, the consortia approach to try to brand the region and all the exciting opportunities that come together. We have a similar focus, of course, with trying to support the prairies and in Canada in general. And we'll walk you through that a little bit today quickly. And happy to collaborate on the information sharing going forward as well. Before we begin, I'd just like to preface that I'm speaking to you today from Treaty 6 territory, the traditional meeting grounds and traveling route to the Cree, Dakota, Nakota, and Soto, and homeland of the Métis. And I do have a few other colleagues who are joining today who have been instrumental in coordinating our departmental efforts to establish this strategy here for on behalf of Prairies Can, and share some intel. So Canute has actually joined me in my office, and also Anne Valentine, who is the lead to support our ADM on the departmental level as well. So let's get right into it on the next slide. So just to tell you a little bit about who we are as Prairies Economic Development Canada, and before we get into everything, our work on critical minerals and the battery supply chains, I'll give you a bit of an overview. You can see our mandate and our vision. We are Prairies Economic Development Canada, a regional development agency, one of, I believe, 7 now in Canada, specifically focused on supporting the government of Canada on place-based economic development and diversification. And we do that through 4 roles: convening, pathfinding, advising, and investing. And all in all of those roles are basically to help to bolster, to address the biggest challenges and support the biggest opportunities. We're also strategic players on the prairies. We gather the intel and try to help support provincial engagement, industry engagement. We try to support our other federal government partners on taking a whole of government approach and being somewhat of a conduit to federal policy decision making and helping to provide a prairie perspective, just like our other counterparts in different areas and regions. And the critical mineral strategy has been one of those, a key component for the government of Canada. And you know, there's a lot of opportunities that exist in the prairies that we've been trying to help to support and try to help see the fit with those high level objectives here on the ground in the prairies. And that brings us to events like this. So we're happy to be collaborating and sharing information with BMAC and the Nevada Lithium Loop as well. So that a shared vision can be created and we can build off of one another's opportunities across our federal family and bring some of that information back to those partners as well. Which brings us to the next slide here on the Canadian Critical Mineral Strategy. So starting at that high level, our work in the batteries and battery inputs is also tied to our critical mineral strategy here. And in June of 2022, of course, the lead federal department on critical minerals is Natural Resources Canada for Canada. And they released their discussion paper that on critical minerals, which would help to inform the development of a strategy over the next year. And it coordinates a number of our 2022 and 23 program announcements as a federal government. Really what it's targeted at is increasing a secure supply of responsibly sourced critical minerals and the development of domestic and global value chains, supporting the green and digital economy. The 31 critical mineral list became 34 as of June 10th, and the value chains surrounding them represent a very strong opportunity across Canada that will last for many years. Those opportunities and the materials of focus within lithium, copper, cobalt, and rare earth elements, as we all know, are the foundation of modern technology as well. And increasing supply chain resiliency has been a big priority for the government of Canada, but for regional economies as well. And we're hearing for yourselves, of course, too. The critical mineral strategy is targeted at supporting businesses and workers and communities as well to seize those opportunities, both with extraction, but also to extend the value chains in the value-added processing and manufacturing pieces. And we're trying to help with accelerating the developments there while helping to address environmental targets as well and sustainability, and ensuring that it's done in an inclusive way, respecting the rights of our Indigenous communities. We're confident that the resources the world needs are really at our door here in the prairies. We've got really strong reserves through Manitoba and Saskatchewan, and a lot of opportunities, including lithium and recycling pieces as well through Alberta. Of course, uranium being a huge play here in Saskatchewan as well. And we're looking at obviously trying to bolster adoption of nuclear there as well, with non-emitting electricity generation. And that's a play that Saskatchewan is trying to make. And we're right here trying to support them with that as one example. So in essence, our job at Prairies Can is to help support the innovation and also to help with other federal program rollout to make sure that it's well utilized, I guess, on the prairies and reflects some of the needs of the prairies. Telling the prairie story is a big part of what we do as well, making sure that translates to Ottawa and some of the unique nuances that exist here on the prairies in Saskatchewan, for example, our power generation, being led by a crown corporation, and some of those things make us a little bit different, and sometimes we need to tell that story, find different ways to frame it. Next slide. So that brings me to a nice slide here of what some of the work that Prairies Can has done to support this battery ecosystem. If you recall, we talked about the 4 roles, and one of those was investors. So the slide really does speak to some of the investments that really fit right within the battery supply chain focus that we've looked at supporting. So we'll start there. So on the right, you'll see an overview of those investments that we've made over the last, I guess, 4 years or so to support. In Saskatchewan, we've invested $8.5 million into the Saskatchewan Research Council rare earth element processing facility, which is quite exciting, and hopefully something that could be bolstered to extend that value chain as well through into battery permanent magnet chain, which I know the province of Saskatchewan is interested in. And through that investment, we supported the production of first in North America rare earth element ingots. It developed intellectual property to support the strategic and secure supply chain piece, and lots of good economic development work to try to support jobs and training. We also helped to convene stakeholders and bring everybody together for the first ever Canadian Rare Earth Summit, and looking at some of the synergies there. And we've supported some research around those sides as well. So some of the extra things we could be doing to try to explore value chain paths. We've made similar strategic investments in Alberta, including, of course, your very own BMAC capacity to convene events like this and bring the ecosystem together, alongside investments in Energy Transition Center and the Foresight Accelerator to name a few for Alberta. And then in Manitoba, we've played a very key role in focusing on heavy electric vehicle cluster and trying to support a wraparound approach and a cluster approach to those economies, and supporting the value-added pieces there, including support for businesses like New Flyer Industries, which is very exciting as well. We'd like to, I guess, point out that these investments coordinate with and support, and build on support and investments from the rest of the government of Canada as well, notably the Strategic Innovation Fund and In terms of the critical mineral strategy, they have a set aside for critical minerals specifically through Innovation, Science and Economic Development's SIF program. And they invested 27 million in E3 lithium to advance the construction of a demonstration scale plant specializing in lithium production. A step towards full-scale, long-term and sustainable source of lithium in Western Canada. So backing it up to Saskatchewan, our investment there at the SRC's rare earth separation process is mirrored also by a large support from NRCan, Natural Resources Canada, of nearly $5 million to bolster their capacity to develop rare earth alloys and metals and expand to be able to take on two different kinds of processing as well from two different sources of ore. So really exciting developments going on there. Also, we try to support on a Government of Canada looking at investment tax credits, whether it be for exploration or sustainable investing that are trying to bolster that ecosystem there as well. We're really proud to be able to work with our federal counterparts, but also to speak with the provinces here and have good relations there with the industry as well to try to understand how the prairies fits into these national strategies and objectives. All right, next slide and final slide is basically a little plug for the team that's here. So responsible, like I mentioned, our Assistant Deputy Minister, Andrew Fraser, is the champion for our department. And the three you see listed under there, myself being one of them, we're responsible, I guess, for helping with the work across regions here and helping support him in that role in various ways. And Valentine on the slide is responsible to help loop together the strategy with our other regions as well, and Canute Rosesson as well. I always butcher your last name, Canute. So we're happy to connect with you. Here's our contact information and explore some of these synergies, or if you want to know more about any of these projects or Prairies Can role in them, we're happy to make those connections for you. And thank you for your time. I'm looking forward to the rest of the presentations.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was a great presentation. Now we're going to hand it over to Sean from BMAC for his portion of the presentation.
Right. Thanks, Amanda. I'm just going to get the screen ready here. So Amanda provided a bit of a background at the top here, talking about kind of how this all started, and hopefully folks are able to see already with this discussion and kind of how this started and why, because when we started the initial discussions, so many things that were happening in Nevada are also happening across Canada, and there's so much similarity to what we're all doing. So we thought it really important to kind of bring these two ecosystems together to talk, share, learn a bit from each other, and hopefully make some connections on further collaboration. So I'm going to give you a bit of an update here on BMAX and the work we're doing, what's happening across Canada. I think the analogy here, we're kind of the Canadian version of the Nevada Battery Coalition, nonprofit industry association representing the entire battery value chain. And our focus is really on helping to build out this battery value chain across Canada. So I want to really start off with our vision, and I say our vision, this is really the industry's vision across Canada, because what we did is we brought together a multi-stakeholder group, and not just industry, but other stakeholders, academic, government, right across the board, and really looking at, what's it going to take to build a robust, sustainable value chain in Canada. And a couple, I think, really important points came out of this. And the first is shifting beyond individual players and looking at this cross-sectoral collaboration. So that's the kind of thing that we're talking about today. And I think this is important because if you look in this space, you go upstream to large multinational miners, or downstream to the large auto OEMs. I mean, they play significant part in this ecosystem and in the value chain. But certainly, any amount of work we do on either of those two ends isn't going to form an entire value chain. And I go back to some of the things that were already said about filling the gaps, and I know Fred talked a lot about that. So that's what we're talking about, is looking at this from kind of that collective view. The other thing is really integrating Canadian industries into existing markets, and by extension to that, trade relations and looking at that. And you can see specifically here brought up was the importance of relationship building with the United States. So looking beyond our borders, as much as we're looking at building a Canadian ecosystem, we realize that this is really largely a North American market as well. So I'd like to take a look at the opportunity and say, with one visual, this map is probably it for us. This is from Natural Resource Canada, showing the current mines in Canada, the smelters and refiners, and then also the advanced projects. So what you can see, hopefully, and appreciate is there's a lot of different minerals and materials here that we're looking at, and it's coast to coast and into the north. So great opportunity. Also, we have the processing abilities. We have the expertise within Canada. The challenge is all of these refineries that we're currently talking about currently have customers. They're pulling material in, they're sending material out. What we're talking about now for this new ecosystem is really an add-on. So we need new facilities, we need additional infrastructure. That's going to take a lot of investment, that's going to take a lot of development. And so that just can't happen alone. And we start to look at this broader ecosystem again and say, what does this mean? We know that other countries are looking to Canada to be a source potentially for some of their critical minerals. The United States, for example, we have, as you can see on the screen there, quite an extensive trading relationship. And the kind of numbers that we're talking about that we need to invest in this sector are big, but kind of numbers we have in daily trade are massive as well. So we've already seen some investment come in just recently through the Defense Production Act to 2 Canadian organizations to support them in their mineral extraction. And this is the kind of collaboration that we're really going to see and going to need cross borders, even with friendly countries, as was mentioned earlier, to ensure that we can really build out all these opportunities. Similarly, there are other regions and other organizations that are coming to Canada from other regions. I think of Japan and South Korea in particular, where I think they look to us for a potential source of critical minerals as well. And we have some organizations coming here that have some battery technology and expertise that we may not have, or other processing technologies. So this is, again, kind of that friendshoring concept and really bringing together the best of each of our regions and jurisdictions. So we know we've got an opportunity. This roadmap report we've released about a year and a half ago, maybe a couple of years ago now, and it really is looking at what's the demand within Canada for these critical minerals. What's going to be the need? And it's important to know that we looked at the lens we took at this was looking at 10% of the North American automotive market. So that's what Canada currently produces within the automotive market. So we just said, what would it take to replicate that? And you can see here by 2030, that would mean producing 1.3 million vehicles and 100 gigawatt hours of battery capacity. A little hard for me to imagine what that even is, to tell you the truth. But if we back out of there, the figure is that's 2 to 4 gigafactories to produce those batteries. So 2 years ago, I thought, wow, that seems pretty impossible, 4 gigafactories. But in fact, if you look at the deals and the agreements that have been, on paper at least, they're in development, but it looks like we can get there. So that's a positive thing. We see that end of the ecosystem building. Where it becomes a little more challenging and where the report really gets into is in this midstream processing. We need to be able to feed those factories. We know, as we saw on the last map, that we have the critical minerals, but right now what's missing is the midstream. It's getting those minerals from point of extraction into battery active materials. And so you can see here, this is where some significant development needs to happen in the space, both on the extraction side to get those projects going, the additional raw materials, and then processing them into battery active materials. So another piece of work we've done then is following up, getting away from the numbers and just looking at more from a graphic presentation, who's actually operating in the space and what's actually happening. So we mapped the ecosystem within Canada. On the left-hand side there, you can see the segments of the value chain. This is very similar to the slide that Caleb had representing the different segments in a linear format. And on the right-hand side there, you see our second version that is actually a live interactive map on our website that you can go and check out. Each one of those small shapes on there is a different organization operating that segment of the value chain. So you can see there are a lot of different organizations. Those segments represent what's on the left, because I know it's hard to see, but that top segment of exploration and extraction, you can obviously see, just without getting into the details, there's a lot more happening and highly concentrated in that area. When you move into that materials processing section, some of the subsequent steps, that's where we understand we need to make these additional developments. So really the graphical representation is matching up with that report and the data that came through from the roadmap. Again, this is on our website. You can check it out. We're actually working on a third version to get some additional views as well and some additional data points, and something that we see as a resource to the industry so they can understand and identify quite easily who's a potential upstream supplier, who's a potential downstream customer, and just understanding where they fit within that value chain. So as I've talked about in both of the last two slides, the weakness right now is in that midstream processing. So one of the things that we're focusing on is really what's the strategic approach to filling that gap. So there's a lot of different ways in which these materials can be processed. Some of them are more energy intensive, some of them are less environmentally friendly. What we want to ensure we identify is what are the optimal processes for Canada, that we can do this one in a globally competitive manner and in a low carbon manner. These are the differentiators for Canada to be able to do this. And so you'll see the 8 minerals on the screen there that we're taking a look at. We've engaged industry experts through some workshops, looking at and examining some of these options and really trying to map out the flow for what would be the optimal process for Canada. So within the next month or so, I hope that we're going to have these to release. The point being, organizations that are in this space that are looking to develop, that are looking for other answers, this will be a resource to them. But more importantly, to those that are on the investment side, to the governments that are looking at making investments, this is now industry's vision for what will work for Canada. So this really helps build that business case and hopefully sell to investors that industry's vision says this, and for somebody that's doing that, that really will help them sell that process. So I want to talk about the hubs and the reality of what's currently happening within Canada. So a bit of a different map here, but I'll start off in the east here and talk about some of these battery hubs that are developed or emerging. I'll start with Sudbury, Ontario, which is a little north of me here, and they're about a 140-year-old mining town, typically known as the nickel capital of the world. So they've got a lot of history there, and they've really developed this ecosystem of building and selling of electrified mining equipment, pardon me. So it's equipment that they're using in the mines there, but also exporting it globally. So this whole ecosystem has really developed out of that mine and the services around it. Now, we don't really have that 140-year lead time. That's their regional advantage, of course. So I'd skip over to Bécancour, Quebec, which really is kind of the opposite case, where they don't have a mining history, but really we're looking at a reindustrialization plan of that area. And so their local advantage was the Quebec government taking a very specific look at what could be developed in that space and building out and investing in and having a strategy to develop this entire ecosystem. So that's really within the works and developing now. And then when we talk about Southern Ontario, there's a geographic advantage there as well, or a local advantage in that that's where most of the automotive industry exists in Canada right now, both parts and automotive manufacturing. So that industry is already automatically starting to turn over and to more gear itself towards the EV and the electrified industry. But there are significant developments that are happening there as well. So we're seeing these battery hubs emerge. Of course, we look at the rest of the country and that span of critical minerals, and we say, well, there's a lot more opportunity out there, Atlantic, West, and North. And so 4 of, I would say, some really critical points and factors that made these 3 areas successful are, 1, they have access to critical minerals. I don't think that's an issue in Canada, so we can certainly build out other areas. Reliable, clean power, and the access to that is also very important too, particularly when you look at the larger producers with these energy intensive processes. Transport infrastructure. Now that can be a challenge in some cases, particularly when we're looking at mines. So that's an area where we need to look at development as well, pardon me. And then of course, access to market. And when we talk about market, West can feed into East, of course, but there's also North-South, as we've talked about with cross-border, and of course, other markets like exporting to Asia, Europe, things like that. So you can see what's happening across Canada. There are a couple what I would call, and I haven't mapped them out on this map here, but there's some seeds within the West where we think additional opportunities can build out of, similar to the opportunities in the East. And that's a next project that BMAC is going to be focused on. So all that to say, there's a lot of different pieces to this, but really I think these are kind of like the building blocks. They're all integral pieces building off each other. We need all of them. And we've really got to this point 3 where we have this emerging ecosystem. But the focus now is on that competitive innovation and then the strategic development as the next steps to make this move forward. So a lot of information really quickly, and I tried to get as much in as I could without repeating everybody. There's happy to chat more if anybody has any questions. And I just wanted to put a plug in. October 29th and 30th, BMAC is going to be holding its second annual Charged Battery Conference. It'll be in Calgary, 2 days. Please mark your calendar. We're going to be talking about a lot of things like this, and certainly touching base with the folks from Nevada to try to get them involved as well. So please join us if you can. And thank you very much, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. That was a great presentation. I actually would love to get a copy of that afterward. Anyway, so for our final presenter, we're going to have Lawrence, and I apologize. Hopefully I'm not butchering your last name. How do you say your last name, Lawrence?
Charlebois. Charlebois.
Charlebois. I was
Yes.
going to say it just like that, so I was close.
No worries.
Awesome. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and we'll round off the presentation with you.
Super. Thanks very much, Amanda. I will share my screen. And I hope that shows well. I want to thank our colleagues from Nevada. Really nice to hear the level of coordination and see some real activity there. I also want to thank on the Canadian side, I want to thank Jennifer for providing a bit of introduction to the Canadian Critical Minerals Strategy, and for Sean for highlighting one of the main identified gaps, which is the midstream in Canada. And so I'd like to speak a little bit to that today in the context of what the National Labs, National Research Council of Canada, are trying to provide by way of services and innovation. My name is Lawrence Charlebois. I'm serving as program manager for our Critical Battery Materials Initiative. And I'd like to also acknowledge Jennifer Littlejohns on the call, who's our program director for the Advanced Clean Energy Program. So as a bit of context, for those of you that don't know the National Research Council of Canada, we have two main functions as Canada, the federal government's largest research and technology organization. The first being as a research performer, provider of research services and advancement of knowledge. We have 13 research centers spread across the country, 24 individual laboratory sites. I'm speaking to you from Ottawa and the Clean Energy Innovation Research Center. The Clean Energy Innovation Center comprises 5 sites across the country, actually. So Vancouver, Mississauga, Ottawa, and 2 in the Greater Montreal area. So we perform research for and with clients and collaborators, looking to advance, again, the state of knowledge and bring new technologies to market. We also have a branch called the Industrial Research Assistance Program, or IRAP, how it's more familiar known. And the purpose of IRAP is really to provide advice and funding to small and medium enterprise in Canada. Again, to help bridge that valley of death, as I think Fred spoke to earlier, and get some of these good ideas to market as quickly and efficiently as we can. As Sean rightly pointed out, converting raw materials to battery materials is challenging, and I think a lot of us on the call can probably recognize that. It was highlighted again in our Canadian Critical Minerals Strategy published in 2022. The good news is that there is some funding to help us start to address those challenges. So the Government of Canada in 2022 announced $3.8 billion over 8 years, specifically for the advancement of the Canadian Critical Minerals Strategy. For us, that was a major signal that we needed to be involved and to play our role as a national lab in bridging that gap, again, linking raw materials to the battery materials production. So I'll speak today about one initiative in specific that I'm responsible for, again, investing in that value chain, but specifically in the midstream area. We are actively involved in research in battery precursor production, battery material synthesis and evaluation, all the way up to pack level abusive testing for EV applications. So our work covers the whole value chain, but CBMI is really focused on developing these automated and AI-enabled platforms that can discover new critical battery materials and processes that are less reliant on our scarce resources faster than ever before. And I think Sean spoke to as well the need for us to advance the state of technology and increase the strength of these value chains much faster than we traditionally would. So for our part in this initiative, we have some funding dedicated specifically to this, building out facilities, platforms in our research facilities. And pictured below is the Advanced Materials Research Facility in Mississauga, just outside of Toronto, Ontario, where we build out automated platforms to help expedite the discovery of these new materials and processes. With this initiative, we also have $10 million in grant and contribution funding available to us to reach out to leading academics and small and medium enterprise in Canada to bridge gaps that we have internally and again, try and bring some of these processes and approaches to market faster. If I step back and just introduce the concept of a self-driving lab or a materials or process acceleration platform, I take this schematic from a young researcher at our Mississauga lab. I think it tells the story quite well. And what we're really living through right now is this evolution of benchtop work, which is critical to bringing these new technologies to market. And validating new technologies from the process perspective and from the materials development perspective, moving from traditional human-centric approaches, which are quite labor-intensive, take a lot of time, are subject to error, through to automated experimental approaches, so high-throughput experimentation, which is widely being adopted in many different environments today, to a truly self-driving lab or materials acceleration approach, where we're coupling that ability to do rapid, high-throughput experimentation with machine learning optimizations that allow us to not only characterize a material space or a process optimization space, but actually target specific parameters that are relevant to the mineral processing industry, to the precursor development folks, the active materials developers, and the battery manufacturers themselves. So the combination of that high throughput experimentation with the machine learning optimization is really key to what we are attempting to do with the Critical Battery Materials Initiative. Again, for us, and I think the value to our collaborators and customers is that we can spend a lot less time on those low TRL or low technology readiness level explorations or experimental campaigns. And it can get us to a position where we're able to scale up either internally or with partners much faster than we could before. So in the context of process optimization, we're able to go from that 1 liter benchtop reactor to a 20 liter pilot scale reactor much faster with much more confidence that we are on the right path. CBMI specifically, and I won't go into the details, but please, if you do have questions, my contact information will be at the end. We are developing 2 platforms at our Mississauga Advanced Materials Research Facility. One will focus on the process side, so looking at precursor development from either raw material feedstock or recycled battery feedstock. And so this type of approach you may have heard of. It's typical to be described as a hydrometallurgical to cathode type approach or direct hydro to cathode type approach. And that will be one platform on its own. The second platform will focus on advanced materials discovery. And initially, we will be targeting that platform at the discovery of advanced cathode materials and also solid-state electrolytes, trying to get ahead of the curve in terms of next generation of performance and safety in battery technologies. Those two platforms and the data that's generated between them will be shared, and in sense creating a closed loop where we have not only new, better performing and safer materials being produced, but with more environmentally friendly and more efficient, from an energy perspective, processes to complement those new battery materials. And just as we close, there are 3 other areas that we are working on actively in sensor development and integration, and this is mostly for online process and product monitoring control. Understanding that as we go from raw materials to battery grade materials, we need very tight controls on quality and on impurity levels. We're also looking at benchmarking and qualification of the materials in EV relevant cells. And we're also performing life cycle analysis and techno-economic assessment to really place these new materials and processes in the context of the North American supply chain. Where we are today, we are really in a major capital procurement stage and launching collaborative projects as we speak, again with industry and small medium enterprise with the help of those grants and contributions. Looking to the next several years, we'll be looking to deploy those platforms both for this initiative and its specific objectives, but also with new collaborators, clients and customers wishing to avail of the use of these platforms in the future. The outcomes for us is, again, really to reduce that benchtop time, getting to industrial relevant demonstration scales quicker and more efficiently than we could before. Ultimately increasing the value of critical minerals in the battery value chain, which I think is what we're all interested in today. And last but not least, of course, decreasing environmental impacts through battery materials that are less reliant on scarce minerals and resources, and using more efficient processes overall. So please reach out, please share your challenges with us. Again, we are creating design tools that we hope will help industry advance and fill gaps in the supply chain. So we're very interested to hear from you and look forward to hopefully working with some of you in the future. And I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, great presentation, everybody. Great information shared. I want to thank all of our presenters for I learned a lot, even though I feel like this is kind of the world I live in. So it was great additional information and kind of a fresh perspective on all things critical minerals and battery materials here in Nevada as well as Canada. So we're looking forward to continued collaboration. I do want to make just a quick note from our office here at GoEd. We're actually getting ready to go to Select USA Investment Summit here this weekend. So if any of you on the call will be there, please stop by our booth. We're at booth number 125, and it should be a really exciting time. We're bringing the governor of Nevada. So first time we have a Nevada governor at the summit. And also, too, we will be continuing to collaborate and have discussions with BMAC leading up to Mine Expo in September in Las Vegas. So happy to connect offline if you're going to be attending that. Love to connect with you. So we'll keep in touch. But again, thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to future discussion and future collaboration. So have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.